Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love.
Here at Proof of Love, we really want to be sure that we're appreciating penises. Throughout these episodes that we've been doing about ED, we've cracked a lot of jokes. I feel like I've been particularly insensitive. And if I were, if the roles were reversed, it wouldn't be cool. And I just want to take a period of time to say thank you to Ben for being on this show and putting up with us and being so open to talk about it and to represent the male team with a sensitive perspective. All jokes aside, I think that we've had some really good conversations, and I'm excited to continue to crack jokes and, probably crack more jokes than have sad moments, because today we're going to be talking about porn. So to talk about porn and erectile dysfunction together, we're going to bring on, of course, my beautiful co-hostess, Lauren Kasowitz. Hey, Lauren.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, girl. Locked down in California. Then free as a bird in Colorado. We've got Dr. Tiff. She's got her show, The Climax, so you guys can check out some of her stuff there. We're doing a co-hosting podcasting together.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. I thought that was a little bit of a growling sound, which I thought was good. Shows the spice of the upcoming show. And then we have Ben Tantra Punk, who I've been on his show. He's been on Proof of Love a couple times before. You should definitely listen to his episodes if you want to make love part of your life. I'm not talking about I'm talking about in the fun kind of way. He's got a bunch of adult videos that he's done, and he's been counseling people on tantric lovemaking for how long? What's the story? And do you have to, how do you, not to go too far off the path, but, people are like, who's this guy? Why does he get to teach me how to screw? So can you tell people why are you qualified?
Well, I've been a tantric porn star since 2009, and then just sort of a off-screen real-life lover to my beloved Shakti priestess goddesses that I worship, and that's the proof's in the pudding, and I get good reviews, and I stay friends with my lovers. So, we could all ask them to join right now. Just say, hey, is he bullshitting right now? Or is this true? Like, we could get him on the line. So I say, good testimonials and lots of experience in the field and studying as well. So there's so many aspects to the chakra system. There's so many aspects to the intellectual, emotional, physical, these structures built on top of our very primal sexual nature. We have a lot of fun to play with, and we certainly should not take it for granted, and we certainly should optimize it. And really, that's why this team right here that you've assembled is going to help us really optimize that right relationship with all kinds of
I feel like we should do a show one day where we quiz you about techniques and tips and tricks, and literally just say, so if there are men listening and they don't go down on their women because they say that they don't like it for some reason, but the reality is because they don't know what they're doing, specifically, what can they do in order to make that happen? And then we as females can support that, or maybe offer a little bit of a different perspective. I mean, that's getting a little bit dirty. I'm not going to lie. I'm not sure what that has to do with cryptocurrency, but I think that, I don't know. Are we trying to get people laid or not? How are you going to outbreed the status if you're just going to be, I don't know, locked down with a crappy sex life? So I'm just saying we could do humanity a service. Do you guys feel like that's inappropriate? Are your parents going to be mad that you do a show like that? Or are you still willing to take the risk because you're adults?
We've done way worse than that, I'd say.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Tiff?
Yeah, people
I think it'd
want
be
tips,
so fun.
Yeah.
right?
So
All right,
fun.
Tiffany's down. I like it.
Yeah.
And I'll say, if you were brave and daring, and actually it's a non-explicit video that I made with a beautiful model friend, and it's actually 2.5 hours. I call it Sacred Sex Education, and it's called How to Love Like a God. And it is me demonstrating with, we've got our swimsuits on basically, but we're demonstrating the actual mechanics of long-lasting tantric lovemaking and all of the practical things. So I designed it for people in their teens so that it could actually be used for real curriculum for sex education for people of all sexually mature ages, which does include people coming of age. So it's not porn, it's not XXX, and it's really sweethearted. And I think it's the best work I ever did at the top of the 2017 bubble when I had more money than so you're seeing the Bitcoin like ecstasy coming out, and I hired her because of taking some profits at the top of Bitcoin 2017. So, and I had a smile for like a week straight after that. So it's just filled with bliss. And if you want to watch that, and it's not explicit, we could possibly review that, or we could just go straight into the questions. But I think you would love it because we go over that, like how do you move your tongue? How do you shape your tongue? Are you trying to harpoon somebody? Or what do you imagine? Like breast massage is like building a sandcastle. So go build some sandcastles and then come back with your breast massage. So Mr. Miyagi meets, Mr. Porn Star. So there you go.
I can't
Wax on, wax off, right?
deal with this conversation because my face is getting so red. So Lauren's down, the way that I'm looking at the screen, Lauren's down there. She looks super excited.
Yeah,
like she's
I'm
a
in.
kid in a
I
candy
love it.
store. And Dr. Smith was like, yes, it's important. Yes, let's certainly talk about that. But in a naughty nurse kind of way, like I think that this episode could get a lot of views. If they say that sex sells, if we're going to do it for the cause of Bitcoin and for making love, I will endure it. But are we going to be able to watch this video and talk to you the same? Are we going to feel differently about you after we see you in this position?
That's very interesting choice of words there. But, well, it's free, so you won't feel like, you went out of pocket for it. So that's nice. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, definitely there's more extreme material that has explicit warnings on my website that you would definitely not look at me the same after you saw that. But it wouldn't be because you thought it was evil or bad. It would just be a little bit shocking. But that's what we're going to talk about, is how porn affects the brain and how that all this stuff works. So
is erotic porn okay, so we're going to talk today about porn because everybody's seen porn. I think that if you're of a certain generation, you still saw porn as, a dirty magazine or some kind of a relatively normal experience of porn, which if you think about it, maybe it's not even that normal compared to 150 years ago where, you saw a drawing of like a boob or something and that was supposed to be exciting. So now people can see porn, children can see porn. I feel like seeing an old Playboy was one thing. It's definitely accelerated. I was doing important research for this show the other day, and I noticed that my general category that I looked for forced me to go into the step sister, brother, mother shit. And I know that people who've seen this show will realize how it makes me murderously angry that is suggested in any kind of place. I don't want to have sex with any of my family members. I don't ever want to think about that ever. And the fact that all of a sudden the new trend, because I don't know, in my, a while back, I looked into porn and I was kind of just curious about it and I was looking at it everywhere. But now there's all this, family themes and it's getting a lot worse. Can you put this genie back in the bottle? Does it need to be? What are your thoughts on porn? Are you guys pissed that I've shamed you for your love of stepsister porn? I hope not. And if you're into that, please never tell me. I'm going to judge you. So, I know people are supposed to be all positivity and stuff, but I will. That needs to not be on the main page. It makes me really mad.
I just don't understand. Where did it come from? It has exploded over the past few years. It feels like that's kind of one of the biggest categories. Is that because of all the divorce and remarriage and they're kind of playing on a taboo? Because a lot of it does seem like it's more like step sibling or step parent based. It doesn't feel like...
How soon till they get to the parent? You know what I mean? Why are they going to stop there?
I know. I don't know. Like, Ben, what do you think? What do you think made this whole genre kind of explode?
Well, I've been doing, some extra research as well. And this goes back for me many years now of using tantric education to help, actually help heal people from porn addiction and then rewire their brain back to natural, real human experiences, which is a process that in the movement they call it rebooting, or there's a no FAP movement, which is a little bit different. But without getting into the details, what we're up against, and what one of my favorite scholars who does Your Brain on Porn, that whole website is a great resource, and it shows how people have healed and what they've had to overcome, and understanding the monstrosity that is high speed internet porn, which is the way that they use that term to distinguish it from like low speed internet porn, where you take you all night to download one video and then you'd have to enjoy that for like a month, you know what I mean? Or go buy DVDs, with your like your funny mask on, because there was social stigma about adult stores. So there was a cost and a time delay. And you know what? Even this is chilling. Jeffrey Dahmer, if I'm remembering correctly, who was a extremely gruesome sexual abusing murderer, said that what really set him off on his journey was the new availability of more access to porn and more hardcore porn. I don't want to demonize all porn and say that that's the path you're going to go down, but he said that when he saw it as a child, it pretty much ruined his soul and broke him and made him cry. So something arguably like happened where his whole nervous system was hijacked, and then that led to these compulsive behaviors and ultimately like the worst kind of heinous crimes you can imagine. So that's not most porn addicts. Most porn addicts are just watching cinema about the most heinous crimes they can imagine. But the mechanism for that is the ratcheting up from the industry of porn, which I'm, it's paying for this call right now, to be perfectly honest. Like my work in that industry, like I have some affiliations there. Nobody's going to censor me or shut me off because there is a niche for porn stars healing other porn stars. You know what I mean? Like you'd be surprised. So, but the point is the industry, if you go to the trade shows and you want to understand how these people work, and it's all people in business suits who are looking at numbers going A/B testing on their websites, and they're seeing that if you understand the way that dopamine works, like we know that Coca-Cola and McDonald's are doing experiments in labs to find out what color schemes to use, what recipes to use, what chemicals to add, and all that horrible stuff. Well, so is Hollywood, and so is San Fernando Valley, the valley where most porn is actually made. So their formulas and their understanding is that the dopamine reward circuit, the nucleus accumbens, sends messages to the prefrontal cortex saying, I want to have that, whatever it is. I need to pursue that. And the reward circuit that goes back to our ancestry is to, reward you for seeking and searching out new access to new experiences, including food and sex and sugars, which are rare, and fats that are rare. So you have food addiction, you have drug addiction, and then porn addiction is built on the same framework of hypersensitization to stimuli and the availability of analogies to natural stimuli in such abundance that it's almost limitless. But the difference between food and drugs and porn is that there are physical limits to how many drugs you can consume, right? And as well as food in an interval. But now you've got these, teenage boys who have like 20 tabs lined up, and they're basically burning out that entire dopamine reward system. So that's what happens. Why the simple answer to your question is the industry knows that you're going to, whatever vanilla, tastes you had from your organic development as a child, they're going to get worn out super fast, and you're going to develop a tolerance to watching the porn of that. So that's why your next video suggestion is something that's going to blow your mind and introduce more dopamine squirts out of that reward circuit, including things that produce experiences of shock and anxiety and disgust and horror and everything else. So it's a cocktail of neurochemistry that is trying to compensate for the desensitization and the sort of slowing down of the neurochemicals, the neurotransmitters, and ultimately getting to ED, why that is that, or what is happening with ED is that as the dopamine, as you build up that tolerance, right, like you would to a drug, or when they say, someone has to take more to get the same effect, and to get that anticipation feeling, the dopamine flowing, they've got to have a bigger reward. They got to take a bigger hit, and they get what's the word is, you build that tolerance. So if you're building a tolerance to porn, the chemicals and the impulses sending messages through the spinal cord to the nerve cells, jumping this, and then creating the neurotransmitter molecules that bridge the gap between the synapse of the spinal nervous system and the parts of the penis that control constricting the blood flow, which is what causes the erection. They slow down, and then because you're bored, and it's same thing in the Coolidge effect, where if you're bored with your lover, or you're bored with your favorite porn genre, novelty, shock, these are all things you have to pursue in order to get that dopamine running again and even maintain that erection. So there's like a downward spiral, a vicious cycle of all of these things forcing you into more extreme activities, and that is hence why this all leads to killing the penis and dead boners, and we can go into how to heal that and the time frames of what it takes to heal that also later. But that's the technical unpacking of the answer to that question. There's a financial incentive by the industry to exploit the dopamine reward circuit until they kill your penis, and then they move on to the next person, and maybe you'll sue them, or maybe you'll get help. But it's just a relentless, like cutting of the rainforest. They're just mowing down everyone's wood by sucking them dry of all their dopamine until they can't even fap anymore, and then that's your boyfriend. So
oh my God, this is the most depressing conversation. I mean, it's really, really sad, because how do you stop people from doing that? Why wouldn't you look at porn if you were a kid? It's so interesting. Who else is going to show you that? Hopefully nobody, right? And I don't know, Dr. Tiff, what's going on? I mean, how is this affecting people? Are we doomed? I feel like we don't even need to know if we're doomed. Like, we are. Spoiler. Like mankind has no hope anymore. Sorry, ladies, you're back to Tinder. I'm going to do an arranged marriage. This is terrible.
I think the first thing that I could say to all of that is, which, I mean, Ben, you're totally accurate with the way that you described how that vicious cycle happens and how it perpetuates. But one of the things I think that to remember is that, like, I'm in the health field. I help people heal all the time. That the person has to recognize that they have a problem. The person has to recognize that they want to get better and that they want to be whole again. They want to be healed again. I deal with people every single day that have sugar addiction and food addiction. And one thing that I do want to point out is, which is really interesting, I think is worth talking about, is how 50% of the dopamine is actually made in the gut. 80% of the serotonin is made in the gut. So serotonin is like your happy hormone. Dopamine is, I would describe it as your excitement or your anticipation hormone. And if you give yourself instant gratification, we have a world of instant gratification. If you give yourself instant gratification, like you said, Ben, with those 20 tabs open that you could just click, 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 and you didn't take you a whole night to download one video, then, or even on Tinder, you could swipe somebody and you could find somebody to meet up with you, and, within 30 minutes, probably, if that. And so we live in this instant gratification culture, and that's really, we're seeing the effects of that. And when you have the instant gratification, you're going to burn out those dopamine receptors. Like, you can have really high dopamine in your blood, but if your cells have actually what's called dopamine receptors, that where the dopamine will actually go work on this and go into this and work on the cell. So if the dopamine receptors are blown out or burnt out or overused and not given time to regenerate, then that right there is going to have there's going to be a problem there. Then there can also be a dopamine production issue. Dopamine production issue would be linked to gut issues. So with our diet. So your diet literally is directly connected to your propensity for developing an addiction and then having erectile dysfunction. Because as Ben just beautifully explained, what happens when you keep using up the dopamine, getting a higher hit. And this is what we see in addiction as well.
Oh my God. It's just so scary. I mean, how do we stop this? Like, do we?
Yeah. Is this our problem? Like, are we supposed to stop it?
I think just recognizing that there's a problem, right? And then recognizing there's a problem. And then if you're at the point where you need professional help, working with professionals. But one thing that my 2 cents to put in, and from my professional opinion, is anytime you help support healing of the gut, you're actually going to support the healing of these neurotransmitters and the cells. So the way that I would go at it, obviously there's psychology, there's possibly trauma triggers. There's not just stop watching porn. Like that is not, I think that's going to do it for you. If you stop watching it it takes about 2 weeks. Ben, is that what you found? Like 2 weeks cold turkey or?
Actually, it's really interesting. In the studies I was looking at, there was a difference between older men and younger men, and it was a lot faster of a recovery period for older men to regain, what you would expect to be normal erections, normal function, normal libido. And then for younger men, it could be a lot longer. I think 6 to 12 months for younger men and a matter of weeks for older men. And of course that's a big curiosity scientifically, but it made sense that the short answer would be that the neural pathways created by the older men were before high-speed internet porn was a thing. So if that was all you were exposed to, the chances of it basically really disrupting your natural development, normal development. Even for men who've never had an actual real life partner, so they don't even know what to compare it to, and they don't. So, but I was surprised to know how consistent and reliable the recovery process is. Like, it's not permanent. The brain is so plastic, that this stuff can be healed. And as long as there's not a physical or quote organic cause for the ED, this is all psychogenic, and it can all be repaired over time. And I love the idea of a holistic approach that includes the diet. And, I would love to create a camp, you know what I mean? I'm sure people are doing it, like what does it take to fully reboot and bring in, like higher real trained like tantrika women to arouse men, in the flesh and with the pheromones and everything. That's a huge part of it, because like you said, you can't just say quit doing it. You got to bring in a natural, holistic, like evolutionarily appropriate alternative. And then that's what they show the difference between the sort of the burnt out, hyper sensitized porn pathways shrinking and dissipating, and you see the synapse or the neurons changing their connections and relationships, and rebuilding the gray matter, even so possibly for the first time, like wiring it to real experiences for the first time. It's just a huge. I feel for the Utah declaring porn a state of what do they call it, a sort of public health state of emergency of sorts, a public health crisis, and then the porn people want to push back and say there's no science to prove that. Of course, they've got the agenda and the incentive to kind of like bash all attempts to but I'm in the middle. I say this is a public health crisis, and we have to look at better ways to prevent this penetration of all the devices, and if I would go try to build a tribe on a deserted island and start over, like reboot all of humanity, like no STDs, no porn on the internet, like, learn how to play with dirt and grow things and swing from trees and build hammocks and tree houses, and like y'all are doomed unless you like get a little bit closer to like nature. So that's my hippie soapbox.
Well, I have a question for you guys really fast, just because we're talking about ED and emotionally that's a big thing, but also I'm just thinking about people who have it that maybe have been watching it their whole lives, and it lends possibly to violence when they maybe can't get it up, or they feel agitated and they've been watching all this porn. have you guys seen a correlation with violence, not just violence against women because of porn, but maybe because there isn't the ability to have this kind of more natural lovemaking, natural sex? And it's like you're watching this violent porn, you're watching these violent experiences, and then you can't get it up in a normal situation. Like, I'm just so curious about how that could affect just propensity of violence in general. Like, it must add a deeper layer that to me seems really scary.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. I have some things to say, but I'll pause and
I'd actually love to hear what you had to say. I don't, I mean, I can make ideas and thoughts, but not a professional opinion about that.
Okay. I will break this into a few areas. The most heartbreaking and disturbing of which is studies that came out of I believe it was the UK. I think there's a film called Pornography. Can't remember. I was kind of studying up on a lot of them over the years, and I've interviewed a few other, even former porn stars who have reversed their, they've become anti-porn activists, having been chewed up and spit out, female actresses, and so there's a cool like phenomenon of not necessarily when they become like Bible thumpers, and to my taste, but people who have been in the industry and they can speak from both sides. They're not just like, oh, it's bad because it's the devil, like, no, this was our career, and this was our experience. So there's like interesting alliances that are looking at these issues, and I think the most chilling thing for me is that there is a difference that's important to know between a clinical diagnosis of pedophilia and a sort of a man, for example, who will, in the absence of availability of an age appropriate consenting sex partner, just most often get drunk and go for the next best thing, which is a child who is like in a trance of childhood, who can be manipulated. But really, clinically, they determine the difference between the two, whether you're actually like an actually considered like a pathological, like kind of permanent, or you need treatment kind of a pedophile, versus somebody who just like would have preferred the other thing. Is that I guess they ask them, would you prefer, are you actually aroused by people of an adult age or whatever, and they say, of course I am, but I was dumped, or my wife was frigid, or whatever excuse that kind of man makes, right? So just it's disgusting. I don't even want to think about it, but it's the reality that there are two types of people who abuse children sexually, right? The ones who really, they, in their minds, their circuitry, like they almost don't have a choice in their in their nervous system, so they need a certain type of isolation and treatment, whereas the criminals who would prefer not to do that, they get a different treatment in the criminal justice system, and they get approached differently. But what porn has done, because of all these like genres that really bend the age appropriate depictions and characterizations, certainly there's a lot of evolving law enforcement techniques to prevent the actual child pornography from being distributed online, but there is all of this like teeny, Catholic schoolgirl. There's all these genres that try to like choose the youngest looking adult models and make them look as young as they can, and then play the daddy stuff and all the fetishy baby daddy, all that stuff. So what those genres have done, to the point of we're talking about the just manipulating the neurocircuitry, is it's taken even young men who you would never suspect of having any kind of like inappropriate fetish for underagers, like as a young growing man, like it's abnormal, it would be considered pathological to anybody, of sound mind. But what's happening is that the criminal justice system was noting all of this massive increase of cases of non-clinical pedophilia from porn-addicted young men who are taking what they're seeing on the screen to their neighborhood and to their gym and to their locker room and wherever else they go and do their deeds. And they, of course, don't really know why. Like they're being like literally through this industry, like wired to become that sort of clinical pedophile who doesn't even have a choice. So to me, that's the biggest, like, case closed. We need to, like, shut off the internet. I mean, I would pull the plug on the entire internet right now until this shit got dealt with. And I've interviewed some of the technologists that are trying to create, like, more robust age verification, but then there gets into a lot of privacy issues and whatnot. So blockchain solutions for age verification of porn is a thing. There's been, like, regulation in the works and whatnot. So yes, the answer is the worst form of human conduct on earth is, like, exacerbated and accelerated by this material and the way it's marketed. And also, every woman I talk to is like, man, why is every man trying to rape my ass? You know what I mean? Like, why do I have to, like, fight them off? Because they're, and so I call it free-based anal sex. You know, there's all these men are out there, and that's how they get their, you know, they're completely turned into a monster over watching this type of material. Not that there's anything, you know, wrong with that per se. I certainly don't find it to be. I think it's something you have to be wise about, the health implications of it, of that way of having fun and pleasure and enlightenment, some people would say. But the heinousness is in the way men are being programmed to overemphasize that and to want to consider it to be something very violent. And of course, porn doesn't show. They edit out the blood, the screaming, the tears, the medics, the hospital. You know, I mean, it can get very horrific, and that gets all edited out. So you don't see the woman, like, or whoever, doing a lot of, like, meditation and relaxation techniques. If they're real pros, you know, you don't see a lot of that. It's out there, but, like, most people are just looking at the thing that's not realistic, which is, like, unlubed anal sex, you know, with, like, repetitive partners, all the different configurations. And, you know, it's very harmful, and it cascades into all kinds of abuse and violence, and also the violence and frustration with oneself. How do you measure if a person who goes and has road rage is road raging because their dick is dead? You know what I mean? Like, they don't report that in the police report, but to your point, it's totally I mean, I would be so afraid to be a young woman coming of age in this reality. Like, I would be so scared and so afraid, and I wouldn't know what to do. You know, I wouldn't know who even to talk to, because it's such the norm. You know, you can't, you know, you would be abnormal not to be in that black hole right now. So, you know,
I think it's terrifying. I think we're lucky we didn't grow up with that, where it was just like people who wanted to watch porn were waiting for, like, a 3 a.m. Skinamax movie that was softcore and was, like, you know, staticky, and you got to see a boob, and that was it. That was exciting. And you look back on those kind of films, like, they were not violent. They were really, like, sensual, and it was an interesting thing, I think, for a lot of us to see as a first kind of foray into porn. Like, from what I can remember, everyone was beautiful. There was lots of kissing. Like, it was just very different than what you see now.
I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, like, okay, so women are watching it, right? Sometimes. And I think that there's that problem, but I think that women have a little bit more self-control. And then I was thinking, well, what do you do if your husband or your boyfriend watches a lot of porn? How do you tell him, listen, knock it off, without him saying, oh, you're just jealous, or whatever stupid stuff, which in itself, if a guy has that kind of reaction, he seems like kind of a dick. But, you know, is there a way that you can suggest to your partner, I mean, like, you know, are we allowed to say that now? Are we allowed to say, because on the one level, you're expected as a woman to say, oh, porn is bad. Then you're expected to, oh, but I love porn. Like, where is the line there? Where are we supposed to say something without coming off like we're annoying dorks that are not sexually experimental in any way? No one knows. Okay, we're all dorks. Yeah. I don't know.
That's a tough one. You know, I think that's a really tough one. That's why, yeah. And one that I don't have personal experience with, but I think that with anything, right? So let's look at it also I'll take it from, like, more of a health standpoint, right? You see your partner getting overweight, not taking care of themselves, having an addiction of some sort, right? What do you do? And so that's where that's where I really think that professional help needs to come in, and that just even having the conversations. This is exactly why I wanted to be on this podcast, because just having these conversations is important. Just having these conversations to know that happens, to know what perpetuates this, and they're not like, and it doesn't necessarily mean that your husband is a bad person or your wife if she has the porn addiction. Is that there are physiological reasons for this and psychological reasons, and they can be undone and they can be detoxed like any sugar addiction, substance abuse addiction. They can be healed. They usually come from a place of deep trauma, right? And deep trauma, deep wounds, and a need for love. And this is how they're choosing to feel that. And so that's how I would approach that.
Right. Yeah. And, back in my day, which I feel like I can say that now, it's like porn was cheating, plain and simple. Like back in my day, if your boyfriend was caught before the internet with a magazine anywhere in that house, you were going to dump him or you're going to beat him senseless with the magazine rolled up, and because, I think we're evolving past the sort of narrative that one person should always be enough. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're getting a little more open-minded about open relationships and more diversity and more different types of sexuality. Like, for example, if you're bisexual and your partner knows it and they're one gender, then they have to accept that they could never be enough because you're bisexual. So it's obvious. So they don't have to be burdened by that. So I think there's a lot of beauty and freedom and like openness that comes from just more diverse experiences with real people. But the idea that, I mean, the effect of becoming addicted to porn and then you're actually moving away from intimacy with a partner if you're fantasizing about porn instead of being with them. And that's why all the eye gazing, that's why Tantra really blasts through all of that, like those layers of billboards and swimsuit issues and porn and whatnot, because when you're eye gazing with someone, you have to empathize 100%, and it's autonomic. You have to be present with them, and you're gonna hopefully like have power to fight off whatever images are coming in that want to try to distract you. And there's I think, I mean, I'm really sad that women feel like they have to toe the line of just accepting that porn is this thing, because also like if you're not keeping up with like who the porn stars are or what the genres are, you might be like ostracized socially for being like out of the loop. You know what I mean? Like you're not like, and I can imagine teenagers just expecting everyone to know what the new gangbang moves are because of whatever's trending on Pornhub, and then being left out, like, oh, you're really like a loser or whatever for like not. Certainly guys are going to try to one up each other in that way. So, I hope people reclaim that sense of like, if I'm going to hook up with somebody, I don't hook up really myself, but I wouldn't use those words. But if I was going to connect with somebody, as who is a dude who has a high probability of having a porn addiction, I would probably want to like understand what his habits are, so it's not a secret and there's not the dishonesty of like doing it behind your back. It's like, okay, like what is it that you really want to, because some of the stuff you can actually get your friends on board with. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta say something very redemptive about pornography right now, which is that on Chatterbait, which I will give a shout out for because they are crypto friendly and they have female executives that I have learned from and appreciate. And I've been on that as a webcam performer myself, and the community of webcam performers who get together and they create like competitive teams all throughout Latin America. There's this huge phenomenon because there's no other way to make money in a lot of cases, like in really depressed or hyperinflated economies. To be a young person, if you can get your, hopefully real ID and you can get verified on a camming site, you can get all your friends together and have these total bonobo orgies all day long, get paid for it. And I'm watching them because I'm on there. They're in my room watching me. And we're kind of like hanging all out together, doing our things. And you just see them like bonding more than I've ever seen anybody bond on ever in my life. Like what I always wanted to have, like that sense of just being naked primates, like able to express our full range of enjoyment of each other, you know, and these are like the most enlightened people I've ever seen. And the configurations that they find, you know, you haven't seen this stuff for thousands of years carved on temples in India. Like this is the real thing. They're figuring out how to like hit every chakra and every erogenous zone between the 6 of these best friends team, you know, all these young women who are like having the time of their lives. So it's very real and organic. And you can, as you know, like, why would you click on like stepsister porn or whatever when you could go there and for free just like and put in a couple of bucks and then you could program them and direct them, and everyone can be a porn director from their own, and they're seeing the laughter, they're getting real-time feedback of the reality. So like if you want to go and troll them and say something inappropriate to them, they're going to smirk and laugh at you and dump you like right there and wait for someone to come along who plays by their rules. So that's just to say that this medium can be hacked in a positive way. And also I got to throw out to Amin Soleimani, Spank Chain, you know, that project coming out of Ethereum smart contracts. I was a beta tester, you know, and a sort of a crypto astronaut, you know, in that project. And we had so much fun, and it was the time of our lives creating decentralized, and I was just a tester. It was the team building it, but I just want to shout that out because I think that is what's going to dig us out of this mess. You know what I mean? Like more empowerment for the performers, more interactivity for the consumers, and a healthier, you know, consensual engagement where you're not just getting piped in something one directional and you're just at the mercy of whatever is the most shocking and the most titillating, and then that ends up where we're talking about the real.
Yeah, but how does like this OnlyFans model make people more willing to love one another? I mean, you give them the novelty of watching an orgy of some randos at your direction, but I don't know. Like, I feel like you just dropped a big bomb of stuff into the middle of this conversation, which I'm not ready to unpack. But I'm not sure that like more porn with a heart is like, I feel like maybe people should go out and say, hello. Oh, nice to meet you. Oh, really? Oh, look. And then like maybe like don't like go for the fisting on your first date. Like, you know, I don't know. I think that the porn options are definitely better to be. I mean, I'd rather that people, instead of having like a completely terrible life, be able to do an OnlyFans instead of work like in the factory where they might die. But I still don't think that that's like peak humanity's achievement. And I worry that, I mean, how soon until those people are being asked to do really creepy, scary stuff, you know, like I think the dopamine hit would not necessarily stop being a factor if you had that kind of a thing, right? Is that what you're advocating for? Like essentially like an OnlyFans? I don't even understand what an OnlyFans is, but I think I know what it is.
I think it's like webcamming, right?
I think so.
I mean, it's kind of taken over where people, I'm not sure about OnlyFans specifically, but I know camming has been such a big thing where people are doing it from their homes, sure, but there are also houses where people will rent a room, like a room, and they'll do their camming there, and it's through a company and they get the percentage or however it works. But it does seem like in a lot of places, it's a way to kind of reclaim your own performance on camera as opposed to having a director and a this and a that. And I don't know that all of these cameras, I'm sure most of them do, but I don't know that all of them are even necessarily having sex. Like it's kind of.
That's true. Companionship is a huge thing, just like escorts. You'd be surprised. People want to hang out and watch movies and laugh and just do cosplay and stuff and play video games and stuff. I mean, a lot of what was happening on Spank Chain was actually streaming video games, people gardening, like thanks to porn and thanks to that vice, beautiful things you wouldn't expect come out of it. Like the fact that we wouldn't be having this conversation right now if it wasn't for porn addicts pushing the envelope of internet technology in the 90s. We wouldn't be having this conversation. We wouldn't have credit cards online. E-commerce comes from porn addicts, you know, high speed video, Skype downloads, YouTube, none of that would have existed if it wasn't for those guys, you know, looking like they're in a monkey experiment, you know, clicking. And so we actually have to, at some level, I think, you know, honor that the genie's out of the bottle, the cat's out of the bag. These technologies are going to continue to grow. But what I look for, is the hope that, because we haven't talked about like the old school of porn when it was all illegal and it was controlled by the mafia and, snuff flicks and like, there was no ability to have a non-pimped sex work career. And now we have, thanks to the internet, you can be an unpimped sex worker, even on the street with apps and things all over the world, even legally in some parts of the world. And with camming, you create so much safety and a buffer from like the violence that happens on porn sets that is made to look consensual, but actually it's not. And they'll say you have to sign the form that says that you weren't, abused on the set. Otherwise you don't get your check. So, I see smart contracts are going to be great for porn, even in studios, because it's like, if there's ways to protect women, but it's all about harm reduction, because you can't stop this from existing, but if it's improving, and the decentralization, through webcamming and OnlyFans. I'm on OnlyFans and it's great. I put my gardening pictures up there and people pay me a lot of money. I don't know why, but I love them for it. You know what I mean? Like, it's changed my relationship to social media to just get paid to do what I do. And there's chefs on there, as well. Like, it's good for everybody. It's like the porn warriors who established this beachhead make it possible for all kinds of other types of liberation. So it's a real mind fuck, like who do you impugn for this? I think it's just like the veterans of porn addiction who we like stand on the backs of all these ruined men's dead penises. We got to like, give back a little bit, which is what we're doing right now, talking about hopefully how to heal this. If we want to get into that, back to the ED part, how do we resurrect these broken erections?
Well, I think breathing, breath work, meditation is a really great part too. But also when I teach my patients how to like change habits, you cannot change. So you have the trigger. If you guys have ever read the book, The Power of Habit. So you have the trigger.
I have, and I never figured out how to fix my habits. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say here.
So you have the trigger, the habit, and the reward. And the trigger and the habit, or the trigger and the reward, will most likely never change, right? So your body still wants that reward. Okay. So what you can shift is the habit, but it has to create a similar type of reward. Okay. So, finding other things that create. So one of the things I help people with food addiction which is very similar because of the dopamine release, is to find things that still taste really good or taste like the thing that you really like, but aren't so detrimental to your health. So things with stevia or xylitol if you're addicted to sugar, or drinking a glass of water so you're not so hungry, walking outside, which does give you an endorphin release, is being outside in nature. And so that's why I love, Ben, that you brought up the eye gazing and how Tantra just blasts through those issues, because I believe that one of the biggest reasons why they're so... I think one of the biggest things is men are not connected from their hearts to their cocks. And when that connection is disconnected, you're going to need more and more of that stimulation directly into the genitalia, into the air, into the cock for that pleasure. But when your heart is connected, and like you said, Lauren, with love making and sex and heart-centered sex, then that right there creates so much of this beautiful experience that can then take the reward piece and replace the reward piece that porn used to do. So obviously it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight, but those are some ideas that could help.
I love that. You know what I wanted to quickly just bring up when you guys were talking about eye gazing, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but it was on the most recent season of The Bachelorette. There was a guy who's cute guy, but people weren't going crazy over him. They had a Tantra session. I mean, a PG Tantra session. And she sat on his lap, and the guru or whoever this woman was had them eye gaze. And I felt it, and I saw across the internet so many people felt it that we were watching him, he was into it. He was really like looking at her so deeply, and people on the internet were like, I wasn't into him before, but I feel something for him now. Like he's really sexy. And I kept hearing it on podcasts of people being like, why do I think he's hot now? And it was like we forgot what it looks like to be romantically, spiritually connected. I think that's what it was. People were just like, oh my God, look at him. He's into it. Like, he's not just like thrusting on a wall. Like, he's looking deeply into her eyes. And it was a really interesting kind of like accidental social experiment. It gave me some hope for humanity.
I've got a hashtag for that. I call it Kundalini is the new money shot. So, and that's what I'm working on with my team of tantric porn producers. How do we, it's like Nat Geo meets, X videos, how do we capture this natural enigma that is a Kundalini activation during lovemaking, which is what's carved all over, caves and temples all over from South India to the highest mountains of Tibet. This is people worked on this for thousands of years. It's something that is like more than meets the eye. And I think a selling point for Tantra, if we're going to bring that up, for resuscitating erections, it's like, if you want to have that, what was most moving for me about the science of your brain on porn was like understanding that this is what ED drugs, they make it so that the neurotransmitters break down more slowly, meaning that your erection is sort of a false erection. It's like a phantom erection that's being messed with by the drugs. So if it works, great, it makes a lot of money. But the actual root cause is the excitement within the brain, that dopamine circuit, sending not like one erection. It's not like, okay, erection button, press erection button, make erection, and this is how long it should last for. It's a continuous impulse. The sensations of excitement have to be continuous. It has to basically be pouring down and raining down multiple impulses to continue to regenerate those molecules, those neurotransmitters that just get immediately destroyed after their message is done. They sent the message. So if you're imagining like, okay, honey, I want us to visualize that your cock is going to be continuously stimulated in this waterfall of our breaths working together in unison to like maintain. The erection is maintained by sustaining excitement. So I want to excite you, and I want us to visualize that and focus on that, and that that's something we're going to get into as a follow-up, is like, how do we in the moment, what are the sort of first aid techniques to get this working again in the moment? And it all comes down to that, how, and understanding that, like, so how as a woman, how are you going to continually, or as a partner or lover, continually be exciting? Because it's not enough just to like do that one thing in the beginning, you know what I mean? Like it's this dance, it's continuous. So anyway, that's what I think Tantra provides, is like multi-sensory experience. That's why you throw the rose petals and light the incense and put on the music. Like the more sensual inputs into the male nervous system, you know what I mean? It's nature, a breeze, you know what I mean? All those things add up, you're getting tickled by the breeze, on your asshole in doggy style, and that's going to help. So it's like, why be limited? And I say, bring in more people, you know what I mean? Bring in diverse people to do different things, and you will be surprised. I mean, imagine having a foot massage while lovemaking. Imagine that augmentation and the force multiplying of people doing different things, and the mandalas of the tantric art. It's like, let's get creative.
I can't handle all this. This is too much for me. Oh my gosh, this is too scandalous. All right, well, we've got a lot more to talk about with ED. I think it's, at the core of, well, not ED, but lovemaking is a complicated thing, I think, for everybody. Long story short, don't watch too much porn. You can skip out on your membership in 2021. If you need help getting off of porn, lay off the candy bars, call up Dr. Tiff, check out some of her Climax episodes that she's putting out now. We're going to be linking to them, and we'll be, follow us all on social and stuff. And then Ben can actually break you from the habit by turning you into a sex god, which I feel like is a decent, trade-off, right? Like you could be jerking off at home, or you could just be like a powerhouse of cockness.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then meanwhile, Lauren's going to be making sweet love. I will be plotting my next sweet love making experience. But we hope to see you guys next time on Proof of Love. Make sure you check out everybody else's show, subscribe, share. We love you. Put down your dick. It's not the time.
Do you like cryptocurrency, politics, economics, activism, or art? Then check out The Tatiana Show, where you can learn all about it in a fun and non-intimidating way, as if you're just hanging with friends. Go to thetatianashow.com and listen now. Proof of Love has been brought to you by CryptoMediaHub.com, a boutique marketing and PR agency for Bitcoin and beyond. Show me your heart. I know that it's beating. Tell me that you love me too. So I know your heart is true. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. 'Cause I need some proof of love. Thank you for listening to Proof of Love. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Proof of Lovecast. More episodes can be found at proofoflovecast.com. And make sure you leave a review on iTunes and tell your friends. You are listening to Proof of Love with Tatiana Moroz, Dr. Stephanie Murphy, and Lauren Kasovitz. This show may contain adult content, language, and humor and is intended for mature audiences. If that's not you, please stop listening. Nothing you hear on Proof of Love is intended as financial advice, legal advice, therapy, or really anything other than entertainment. Please take everything that you hear with a grain of salt. Oh, and if you're hearing us on an affiliate network, the ideas and views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the network that you're listening on, or of any of the sponsors or affiliate products that you may hear about on the show.